Hello, I am in Switzerland since a couple of weeks with my new lens, the Sony E 70-350 f4.5-6.3, a very popular telephoto zoom lens, very sharp, small and lightweight for what it is. We will start with a few videos, handheld, recorded in 4K at 120 frames per second, in slow motion with music. Keep in mind that in 4K at 120 frames per second with my Sony A6700 there is a crop. So is the footage sharp enough with that crop? Is the dog running at full speed always in focus? I will use that Raynox for some footage with the insect. So you will see that we can actually do macro photography or macro videography with that lens. This video is not sponsored. I bought that lens by myself at around $600 on sale online. Since it is rainy and dark, I will just show you the places where I went while I talk. I like that lens so far, it does the job no matter what. Versatile, good focusing speed, excellent sharpness, not too bulky, not too heavy. It's not a fast lens, but as long as you have a good light on your subject, it's a joy to use. And it's very fun actually. There is just one thing that I don't really like. We will see about that later. This is not a new lens, by the way. It was released at the end of 2019, so 6 years ago today. this is one of the rare lenses made for APS-C. The equivalent on a full frame would be 105mm to 525mm. Here is an example with kind of the same apertures. The Canon RF 100 to 500 f4.5 to f7.1. To make it clear, this one at 350mm on my Sony A6700 has a tiny bit more reach than this one at 500mm on a full frame like the R5 for example. And those are all my telephoto lenses. You will find a link on the reviews about them on the video description below. We have 625 grams, 142 by 77 millimeters, and a maximum length of 190 millimeters. There is a lot of plastic, but the build quality seems good and solid to me. The lens is dust and moisture resistant with a lot of seal points. Here we can see one, the sealing gasket. We have an autofocus and manual focus and an image stabilization on and off switch. Both of them are not easy to move and I like it that way. The autofocus works well. It is fast and silent in continuous autofocus. In single-shot autofocus, it is fast, but you can hear something moving inside the lens. In video mode, I filmed several birds, seagull, ducks, and cormorants. I was very happy with the autofocus, and I was only with the autofocus default setting. For example, here I was in 3 standard. That's why you see the autofocus losing the seagull when it passes behind the pillar or when it's too close to the edge of the frame. Actually, I am looking at those settings only right now while doing the video. And this is the bird at normal speed. Sony is not the best with image stabilization, and that's really my only complaint about this lens. Here we are at 350mm, the image stabilization is turned off, and here it's turned on. Of course, the image stabilization helps a lot for photography, but that's what you get in video mode at normal speed. In my opinion, Nikon, Panasonic and OM system are the ones with the better image stabilization in 2025. At least with the recent lenses and camera models. Next we have the focus ring. I did not use it except for macro. No complaint about it. This is the focus hold button that you can assign to something else if you want to. I didn't use it. A switch here to lock the lens at 70mm. I will probably never use it as well. This is the zoom ring. Not too easy to turn. Maybe 45 degrees to go from 70 to 350mm. No creeping, even if you hold the lens like this, at least for now. The filter thread size is 67mm. There are 7 rounded aperture blades and 19 elements in 13 groups. Let me show you some photos. We start with a few handheld macro photography in the garden of my mom. To be clear, when I say handheld, I will always take advantage of things around me to optimize the stabilization, especially for macro. I used a lot my new Amaran LED light, and I tried first with the 56mm of extension tubes, but it was not a good idea. Dark, unbalanced, and awkward, so I used the Renox DCR 250 instead, and it was perfectly fine. The minimum focus distance is 1.1 meter at 70mm, but the maximum magnification ratio of 0.23 to 1 is at 350mm. The minimum focus distance becomes 1.5 meters, which is far actually, but convenient for butterflies, dragonflies, lizards, and other small skittish animals. This is what you get at 350mm at minimum focus distance. And here is the result with the Renox. We have a bit more than 11 centimeters of working distance. I shot mostly at 70mm with the Renox to keep things simple, but of course if you go with a higher focal length, you will get a higher magnification, but more restrictions regarding the light, the stability, the depth of field, and the working distance. With the Raynox, the famous 1:1 ratio of magnification is at around 120 mm of focal length. Here I shoot a beetle that I found on that white fence with the Raynox and my LED light. And here is my latest favorite, a very common wasp in Switzerland eating the grape of my mom. So as you saw, it's not crazy good macro, but it's decent macro. At least good close-up, both with or without the help of a magnifier. Over here, in French we call it les dents du midi. In English it would be the tooth of noon, I guess. You see them right now with my DJI Action 4 at 12 mm of focal length, and now with the Sony 70-350 at 70 mm, 100 mm, 300 and 350 mm. This is the small port of Villeneuve, a small village in the state of Vaud. This is the best place that I know for birds in flight. However, my best bird in flight in Switzerland was taken somewhere else. I'll show you later. That whole place there is a protected area. This is the artificial limit of the natural reserve. And on those rocks, you can see hundreds of birds, cormorants, herons, seagulls, ducks, coots, swans, and more. We also have a giant tree in the middle of the lake, and it's really nice there, quiet, with a lot of birds. I have not been super lucky that day. When the biggest bird of the day came close to me, for some reason I was at ISO 100, so the image was dark. And the background is boring. No crop here, still there is some good details and not much problems on contrasty areas. Another boring background, but I think even closer than the heron. Again no crop. With my usual shutter speed of 1/1600 of a second, only the head is very sharp, and anyway at that distance, at f6.3 and at 350 mm, I am not sure I could have the whole bird in focus. Finally a cool background here, but it was too fast for my default shutter speed of 1/1600 of a second. As you see, for some birds this lens is enough. I got a few environmental shots of black-headed gulls. Light upon her skin, coffee cup before the day begins. This one with a part of the city of Montreux is my favorite. We'll slow it all the way back down. At some point I had that swan super close to me. Time is still and there's nowhere to be. Birds are talking outside, getting space for the words we hold in. And a swan is perfect to show you a bit of chromatic aberration. Sometimes you will see a bit of it, especially at 350 mm in the edges of the frame. You can see over here some green if you zoom. I must say that the lens overall do a good job optically. You can go look back at the gulls and you will not see anything wrong, I think. Here I removed the green simply with a linear gradient mask, then I reduced the green. Stay a little longer, it's only getting warmer. Slow it down 'cause time can't wait. Here another environmental shot of a heron that I like. Perfect position and super sharp. We can probably crop like this with the bird in the middle, and you can see super tiny flies around him. Let's compare that Sony lens at 350 mm with that heron over there against my RF 100-500 mounted on my R7. Keep in mind that the Canon has a 1.6 crop factor and the Sony a 1.5. Last one before we go to another place. There is a small crop and I did use topaz denoise this time. This is a great crested grebe bringing a fish to its kids. Not a bird that I see very often. Nice colors, good light. It was always too far until those couple of shots. I don't have a good photo of the kids, but there is one of them here. Now we are in a pond of water named Les Mangettes. That's where I finally took my first good photo of a duck in flight. This time my mom and I found a nice vantage point and I got many ducks in flight at reasonable distance with cool backgrounds of the Swiss mountains. But the very last one is definitely my best duck in flight ever.
Over my skin, nobody else would get this like you do, like you do. Oh, stand down, darling, now. We've gone too far this time. Left a hole in place of my heart.
With those last ducks on the water, you can see the nice subject separation that you can get, the very good image quality, and again the sharpness of that lens.
Will tell us all. Will we fall in love again? Or is this the end?
Feel free to pause now and look at the bokeh balls made with the 7 aperture blades if it's important to you. Now little test, I focus on that plant and I change the focal length 70mm, 100mm, 135mm, 200mm, 350mm. You can do landscape with this lens. Here is before sunset from my window. This is close to the city of Martigny in Valais. Obviously, you can also do subject photography. You can photograph your favorite pet. This is the perfect lens for it. You can photograph your kids playing outside. I was at the football game of my niece. She scored 2 times and she won. This lens is a very good option for that kind of photography. Let's analyze the bokeh. And as you know, the formula is the closest your subject is, the better your bokeh will be. And obviously, it also depends on the focal length, the aperture, and how far the background is. My nephew played also, but I was with my Canon and it was raining, and of course he won. This is one of the best telephoto lens made for APS-C, probably the best at this price. With it you can do wildlife, landscape, pet, subject, street, close-up, macro with a modifier, sports and more. I don't know about older models, but with the Sony A6700 you can track most of those things. What you cannot really do is to fill the frame with a small bird. This one was very close at about 12 meters. You cannot shoot and freeze movements in low light without adding a bit of noise, and you cannot really record handheld a clean video rendered at normal speed. You may want to use a tripod for that. And lastly, the bokeh with your kids playing soccer can be harder to get with those darker apertures at a certain distance. What makes this lens special is that it's one of the very few telephoto zoom lenses made specifically for APS-C cameras. Therefore, smaller and lighter. On top of that, it's affordable when it's on sale. I got it for 550 Swiss franc, I think. This lens was around $900 6 years ago, but now you can find it on sale very often, so buy it on sale. So if you have a Sony APS-C camera and you want a telephoto lens, it is sharp, versatile, relatively small, lightweight, and has a decent maximum focal length. And I think it's a fun lens to have for wildlife and sport, in my opinion. And that's it. Bye.